Welcome back to Rich Tuesday. You know, when you get close to retirement, you start clicking on things, articles, videos, anything kind of related. It's partly to learn, but it's partly to reassure yourself. And once you do that, the algorithm, it just keeps feeding you more, of course. That's where I am right now. Recently, an article popped up, caught my attention. 5 of the most common money regrets retirees have. And the list was exactly what you'd expect, really. Not saving enough, taking Social Security too early, too much debt, retiring too soon, not prioritizing health. Nothing really surprising there. We've heard these before, but something about it, it just didn't sit right with me. At first, I couldn't really figure out what the deal was, because on the surface, they all sound reasonable, right? Even obvious. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like something else was going on. That they didn't feel like lessons. They felt more like judgments. Because if you really look at these, they all have the same structure. They're all really saying, I should have done better. I should have known. I should have made a different decision. But here's the part that bothers me about that. All of that judgment, it's happening from today's perspective, here at the end of the story. But you didn't make those decisions here. You made them way back in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, when life wasn't simple. Things were stacked on top of each other: career pressure, raising kids, marriage, unexpected expenses, trying to keep everything moving at once. And in that moment, retirement wasn't always the top priority, was it? Sometimes it wasn't even in the top 5. And that's the part these regret lists, they leave out. They strip away all the context, all of the trade-offs, all of that pressure. They turn decades of complicated decisions into a nice, clean, simple conclusion. You just should have done better. But better compared to what, really? To a version of life that didn't really even exist? To a level of clarity you didn't have? To priorities you couldn't fully act on at the time, even if you wanted to? Because real life, it doesn't happen in a spreadsheet. You don't get to optimize everything. You don't get to max out every category. No, you make decisions with incomplete information, under pressure, with competing priorities, because life is complicated. And sometimes you choose what matters most in that moment, even if it costs you something later, right? So when someone says, I regret not saving more, or I regret taking Social Security early, what they're really saying is, if I knew what I know now, I would have done it differently. And of course you would. Everyone would. That's what hindsight is. That's how it works. But the danger is we turn that hindsight into self-criticism. We look back at our past decisions as if we had the same clarity we have now, as if we weren't dealing with everything we were dealing with. And we quietly rewrite that story, right? To make ourselves look careless or short-sighted or just wrong. Reading that list, that's what I felt. Not motivation, not clarity, kind of just a pressure to judge my life, to go back and second-guess decisions that were made in a completely different version of reality. And the more I think about it, the more I believe this. Most retirement regrets, they're not really about money. They're just about how we remember our lives and how harshly we judge the person we used to be. So lately, I've just been thinking about this differently. Not just, what should I do better from here, but also, how do I look back at my life honestly, without being unfair to myself? And that's not easy. Because yes, there are things I would do differently. Of course there are. But there were also real constraints, real trade-offs, real reasons behind all those decisions. And you know what? I think that matters, because at the end of the day, retirement isn't just about money. It's about how you sit with your life and whether you can look back at it with understanding instead of judgment. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. I got lots more content coming. I'll see you in the next one.